Busy is the perfect cover. It sounds like success. It feels like virtue. It gives you something to point at. I'd love to, but I'm buried. I haven't had a break in months. I'm in back to back until Thursday. And everyone nods because they believe you and because it keeps them from asking the question you're avoiding. What would you do with the time if you had it? What would it mean to no longer have an excuse? If that question makes you uncomfortable, good. That's exactly who this episode is for. The man who built something real, runs a room, and somewhere along the way, stopped maintaining the man doing the building. This is Iron Suits, where strength wears a crown. I am Marwan. Busy men are not always productive men. Sometimes they are men who have filled every gap, so the mirror never gets a clear look. The calendar is always full for every man at your level. That is not a distinguishing feature. It is the baseline condition. But here's what separates the men in this conversation. Some of them with the same demands, the same pressure, the same calendar, hold a physical standard. Not perfectly, not obsessively, consistently. They train, they protect the inputs. They do not use a calendar as a reason because they do not experience the calendar as a barrier. They build the standard into the structure of the life, not around it, inside it. The difference between those men and you is not time. You have the same hours, the same competing demands, often more resources to manage them. The difference is a decision. One that was made or wasn't. And that one difference has been compounding ever since. The objection is immediate. You don't know my schedule. You don't know what I'm managing. My situation is genuinely different. You listen to this in an airport lounge, laptop open, 3 unread Slack threads, and a board deck due Friday. I know. I'm not talking about your schedule. Every man believes his situation is genuinely different. That is not insight. That is the universal experience of a person who has not yet decided. Here's a test. Think of something in your business that is non-negotiable. The board meeting, the quarterly review, the call with the investor that runs the fund. Does the calendar defeat that? Does the busy season cancel it? Does a hard week even make it disappear? No, because it is non-negotiable. Because you decided at some point clearly and finally that it happens regardless. The body has never been given that status. Not because time isn't there, because the decision hasn't been made. Here's a precise thing I want to say. Busyness at your level is partly constructed, not entirely. Like the demands are real, the pressure is real, the full calendar is real, but the gap, the space that exists between commitments, you fill it deliberately with the next call, the next meeting, the next problem to solve, the next thing that justifies the pace. Because the gap is uncomfortable. Because inside the gap is a question about what you would do if you weren't moving. Busy keeps that question from landing. That's not a time problem. That's a management problem. And you know the difference. The man who fills every gap is not managing his schedule. He is managing his exposure to himself. That is not a time problem. That is a different kind of problem entirely. And it will not be solved by a better calendar system. Busyness performs two functions simultaneously. The first is obvious. It signals productivity, it communicates value, it tells a room, this man is important. His time is scarce, his attention is earned. The second function is less discussed. It provides a continuous, renewable reason to not address the things that require stillness to address. The relationship that needs a real conversation, the health metric that needs to be looked at directly, the standard that has been drifting and needs to be named before it can be recovered. Stillness surfaces these things. Busyness buries them. And for a man who's very good at moving, who built his entire identity on forward motion, stillness is the most threatening environment he can enter. The hotel mirror at 11 p.m. Jacket still on, laptop still open. You caught your reflection for half a second and looked away. That was the stillness, and you ran from it. The man who cannot stop moving is not driven. He is afraid of what he'll find when he does. That fear is not weakness. It is information. It is pointing at exactly the thing that most needs to be addressed. That's a cover. Impressive from the outside, hollow when you're honest about it. The reframe is not to become less busy. It is to be honest about what the busyness is doing. If it is productive, if it is generating real output that compounds towards something, then it is justified. If it is filling space, if it is the motion that prevents a stillness that would require you to look at something directly, then it is not productivity. It is avoidance at scale. The test is simple. Look at your calendar for the last 90 days. Find 40 minutes. Any 40 minutes. They are there. They have always been there. The man who cannot find 40 minutes in 90 days is not busy. He is protected. Protected by a structure he built to make sure the 40 minutes never existed. Dismantle the structure, find 40 minutes, do the thing. Not perfectly, consistently. That is the entire instruction. Busy is not a calendar problem. It is a priority problem wearing a calendar's clothes. And you know this. You've said that to people on your team when they tell you why something didn't get done, when the reason is the schedule, when the full plate becomes the explanation. You look at them and say, we find time for what we decide matters. That is correct. Apply it. Because the standards you've been too fucking busy to hold has been holding you accountable anyway. You just haven't been paying attention to the bill. The bill is the energy. The bill is the room. The bill is the man in the mirror who looks like he stopped deciding somewhere along the way. Pay it or keep running. But know what you're running from. There will be a moment for every man when the business stops. Not by choice, by circumstance. A health event, a forced pause, a season that finally clears. In that moment, the man who built his identity entirely on motion has nothing left to point at. And what he finds in the stillness is the thing he was always running from. The gap, still there, unchanged, having waited patiently through every full calendar and every justified reason and every long day that counted as an excuse. The gap does not get bored. It does not go anywhere. It waits. The only question is whether you address it while you still have the energy to do something about it, or whether it addresses you. This is Iron Suits out where strength wears a crown. Next episode, age is the last lie that you tell yourself, and the most culturally protected one. If this episode hit a nerve, then share it with another leader who's a little bit soft and making excuses. Make sure you follow me on my socials. I am on Facebook under Marwan Killu, LinkedIn Marwan Killu Fitness, and you can watch us on YouTube under Marwan Killu. Make sure you subscribe to the show because make sure you subscribe to the show so you get notifications when new episodes go live. I meant to say the verse from the Bible, as iron sharpens iron, and that's why I said because I'm used to saying it in a certain way in my head. Anyway, so share the show because as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another, and that's another reason why you should share the show. Hey, that's how we spread the message. And last but not least, leave me a positive review on iTunes. That'll really make my day. It helps the show grow, and it helps spread the message. It gets more people listening, more people that listen, the more people that change. People live longer, and it becomes a better world around. So happy days. All right, until next time, take care, and I'll talk to you on the next episode.